Okay. Okay, we'll get going now again. So we are starting into the water budget. So we'll kind of just start from the top and go over the different revenue streams. So the first one is the base rate. So that is that $10 kind of flat charge that that we do charge on our bills, and that is generating just over that $450,000 a month. The next line is our consumption. So this is the cost of water that we're generating from the utility bills that are directly sent to residents and we collect on their utility bills. So we do look at a 5-year average when we're looking at our annual consumption. So we have that number here, and we are seeing a 33-cent increase from the commission this year from the Water Commission. So we do attribute that 33-cent increase as a rate increase for us as well. The one big difference this year is that administration did not take an increase internally for our own numbers. We only just took the 33-cent increase. The next line is water connection fees. So this is fees when people are setting up a new account. There is a connection fee to set up. Obviously penalties is the next one, and then other revenue. So this is primarily any door knocker charges. So through our bylaw, if we have to kindly remind you that you need to pay your water bill by putting a door knocker on your front door because you have not kind of contacted us in any other way, there is a charge for that we do put onto their utility bill, as well as some admin fees. So for example, there's the $3 fee for a second paper bill and things like that. So that comes out of that line. When we move into salary, so that does cover 50% of our kind of utility salary staffing, as well as there is some part-time wages. They do share 50% of a summer bylaw staff, a summer student staff member. Staff and development and training has decreased along with travel and subsistence. That just kind of goes hand in hand here. Freight expense, so they do pay a little bit. So when we have to send water away for testing or things like that, we do have a kind of a freight program where we have to ship that away. And then you see the $20,000 in postage. That is for, namely for mailing out our utility bills. So the brunt of our postage does come from utility bills. So there's little pieces in water, wastewater, and then in garbage as well. Telecommunications, so this has some of their landlines. We do have to pay for internet at a lot of the every reservoir just to kind of keep it connected to the SCADA system, and some cell phones for some of our utility staff. The advertising and promotions line, it's really not advertising, that is our water rebate program. We did kind of talk about those stats earlier on Friday, so that's where that line kind of comes in. The operating project we have here, what is it? So it's leak detection for $50,000. So it did decrease from the operating project that we had last year, but it is $50,000 for some leak detection work. Repairs and maintenance has increased from $32,000 to $62,000. Vehicle repairs and maintenance, so this is specifically to the hydrovac only. All other fleet does get dealt with in our different department. Contracted services, so this is any electrical plumbing contractors that we have to come out and have them work on any of the reservoirs or anything, any instrument testing, recertifications for any meters, the maintenance fees, cover all costs will come out of here, things like that. However, the large brunt of the expense for this department is that regional purchase of water. So that did increase again, and this is strictly due to the 33-cent increase that we saw from the commission. Supplies and goods, safety, supplies and vehicle fuel didn't change. Natural gas does increase. And then that transfer to the reserve line. So this is one of those departments, along with all the rest of the utilities, that's self-funded. So that number will change based on the final numbers of the department at the end of the year. So it could be 198, that's what we're estimating for 2026. But based on actual costs, maybe we got a little bit more revenue or a little bit less. And then when we do our year-end audit and stuff, those numbers will come back to council for formal approval.
Councillor Russell.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. Director Vickers, there's postage expense of $20,000 in this one. I'm assuming it's split, you said, between other ones as well. So what is the total postage postage expense we have for utility bills that are mailed out?
So right now in budget, there's 20 in water, there's 20 in wastewater, and there's 7,500 in garbage for a total of $47,500.
So have we ever thought of moving to giving a timeline where you need to move to the online, electronic billing of statements? And there will be some people who choose not to, but we charge them a fee to the cost recovery of those postage if they say they don't want it electronically?
Mayor Barkley, through to Councillor Russell. So a number of years ago, we did bring in a $3 charge for a paper billing. At that time, council did determine that due to kind of the age of our residents, that not everyone would have the ability to get an electronic form and still maybe manage to print it off. So at that time, it was kind of denied, I guess, and only put to if you have a secondary bill. So this is specifically around if you're an owner and you have a rental property and you want a bill and you want your renter to get a bill and they're both paper, they're charging for that second paper copy, but not the first one. We have made some internal discussions already that we would like to bring. We were going to bring that back out after we do a review of our postage kind of early in the quarter next year, bring that back for further discussion about introducing a more formalized bit cost for all paper copies. And then, give people a year's notice or 6 months notice to kind of saying, January 2027, we're making a switch. But so we'll do that review and bring that before council for next year, so.
Okay, thank you.
And Director Bickers, maybe part of that discussion, or maybe you've had it already, I think is education. So when somebody comes in to pay their bill, or you signed up online, here's how you do it.
Mayor Barkley, we have shifted the way we talk and almost around the words, here's the form for e-billing, please fill it out, right? And not that we're forcing people to, but we're kind of saying, here, fill it out now and you'll get them by emails. And if you don't want it, then that's when they're kind of saying that they don't want it by email. So we have transitioned that we're starting to try and get right from the brand new utility account to kind of get them on e-billing right at that set stage.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I would agree. It's probably time to move forward with this and making sure that we communicate it properly if we're going to choose to go this route. But I think it's time. Thanks.
And Director Bickers, another question about our rates. So we're at, is it $3.59 now for
$3.59,
water?
yes, member.
And what are we paying the commission?
So we're paying the commission. 1 second. So they went up to 253. So we went from 220 to 253.
Okay. And then I look at, I know we'll get into reserves later, but when I look at, I'm assuming the utility capital maintenance and repair reserve going from 2.5, year end would be 565.
Yes.
So is that concerning? Because it is to me.
So there is a fairly large project, the project over going under the train tracks. That's kind of a big project. Yes, utility reserves is always a concern when we talk about the decreased funding from the federal government and the high need that we still need to do to manage our 10-year capital program.
And the letter we received from CPKC, another $400,000.
That did kind of come in after we formulated the binder, so really that is going to be an addition to whatever we're going to present here as well. So,
and maybe that's just something to think about as we continue on the next couple of days on this, is, what should we be putting into reserves? And
a larger portion of that flat base rate should be going back directly into repairing that infrastructure. Your consumption rate should almost pay for the department, but right now that would be quite a drastic change, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
but that is something that we're going to look forward to, all kinds of affordability and things like that as well. So, any other questions specifically about the water department before we move to sewer?
Mayor Barkley, Director Vickers, I know it's a small item, but is there still the initiative for the toilet exchange credit, and where would that come into in the budget?
Yeah, so absolutely, Mayor Barkley through to Councillor Hill. So under the advertising and promotions, that $25,000 line, that is the expanded toilet rebate program. So we've had the toilet rebate program for, 10 or 15 years or so. So last year we fully expanded that to include a variety of other kinds of different, also kind of water reduction areas like a low flow shower head, energy efficient kind of dishwashers, washing machines, I think hot water tank, things like that, even some mulch and some drought tolerant trees and stuff. So we've kind of expanded that program to incorporate more options for people to reduce their water.
And that's a water conservation?
Yeah, it's more
called?
around water conservation, but inside of that is still the toilet rebate program where you can take your toilet to the transfer station at no cost and then kind of still get that credit on your utility bill. And again, these are all directly to the utility bills. We don't write checks for these. We just put it as a credit on your utility
Thank you.
bill.
I appreciate that clarity.
Okay, let's move on to wastewater. So a very similar kind of structure for funding. They do have a base rate just like water. You can see that it is a little bit higher. A number of years ago, we did increase that base rate to $12 up from $10. So water is still sitting with a $10 base rate and sewer is sitting now at a $12 base rate. So that's why water was $4.51 and now sewer is kind of that $5.40 there. So the sale of services, that $13,000, that is effectively our Sani dump revenue that we get from there. And then that inspection testing fees, we have a little bit of costing there, but again, the big chunk of revenue is coming from that consumption, and that's directly from utility bills for the cost of sewer. And again, if you remember our conversation on Friday, sewer is charged at 100% of the water, we meter the water going in, and we charge sewer at 100% of that rate currently. For the consumption, we did receive a 3-cent increase from the commission for their expenses. We added a 20-cent increase for us, so the total increase to that consumption rate is 23 cents. As we move down into the expenses, a lot of these expenses are shared 50-50 with utilities, specifically salaries. Again, they have the salaries, they share that part-time employee. They have their training and travel and subsistence. They do pay a portion of freight as well, a little bit less because typically it's more water that we send away for testing. They also see that $20,000 fee for postage. Yeah, we did increase engineering services a little bit just to, let me see where that is here. Any kinds of like studies and stuff, really the big cost is the groundwater monitoring at our 3 areas. So the one we call the Hill of Sins, so we do have to monitor that groundwater, the old landfill, as well as the Dodds Lake area that we are monitoring as well. So that's the brunt of those costs. And then there's a little bit if we have any engineering studies, things in there as well.
Council, to the directors, to Director Kennedy, can you go into a little bit of detail on each of those monitoring items?
Yep, for sure. So we have 3 areas in town that are contaminated sites. The first one's at the Southwest Industrial Park. It's an area that's designated as a PUL now, undeveloped land. Part of the agreement with Environment, it's on a monitoring program for contaminant, just to watch to see what it's doing, if it's flowing, if it's getting any worse. So we have that program. We have the old landfill. That one, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, or quite a few years ago, it stopped being monitoring. It should have been. So we started that program 2 years ago, remonitoring that program to see how, again, what is the subsurface doing? How's it flowing? So we're recording that. Submission every year has to go to Environment, identifying any concerns. And then Dodds Lake is the third area. We looked 2 years ago, we looked at the possibility of knocking that down, expanding the parking lot. Through that, discovered that it's a contaminated site. So we started monitoring it, and we'll be coming back to you in regards to some results on that one as well. So.
I'm just, Mayor Barkley, I'm not sure where the old landfill is. Can you tell me the location?
Sure, sir. Yeah, so it's just west of the cemetery. So the ski hill and the, yep.
CEO Becker, when Director Vickers is maybe done with this cost center, could we go into camera for a couple of minutes? Okay.
Okay, so we have operating projects. So this is You want to go in camera now or when we're done? Yeah, she said when we're done this costing center, yeah. We're still live, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, so operating projects, we do have one identified for this is manhole I&I, just to kind of see what's going on there. Repairs and maintenance stays the same, as well as vehicle repairs and maintenance. And again, this vehicle, it's not for vehicles, this is specifically for the hydrovac. Contracted services is very similar to what water pays for, some SCADA costs, any electrical, plumbing, instrument tests, coveralls, things like that gets funded out of here. Again, similar to water, the largest cost is that regional service purchase directly from the SRD. And again, we're seeing a slight increase because that rate did go up 3 cents from them. Supplies and goods is kind of going down a little bit. Vehicle and fuel remains unchanged. Natural gas was able to kind of go down a little bit, but electricity increased to kind of offset. And that transfer to reserve, again, is very similar to all the other utilities. That number will change based on the balance of this account at the end of the year. So, okay, so shall we go in camera for a minute?
Thanks for the story time.
Yeah, thanks for the story time, yeah. I don't want to say that in public, like, you know.
No.
So I think it'd be important, council, just maybe put it to the director, just talk about I and what that is and some of that work you've done over the last, even pre-town of Innisfil, the work you've done.
Yeah, for sure. So to council, so I and flow infiltration, definitely wasn't a concern of Innisfil before they hit the regional system because we had a sewage lagoon. They actually encouraged I. It was like, it's great for this treatment, right? So, once the regional came in, it became very evident that Innisfil's got a very high I problem, and we need to fix that. Back in 2019, they got the grant, 2016, I think it was. They got a significant grant to help solve the I problem. That's mainly focused on lining sewer pipes. So there was an extensive program for about 3 years where we spent about $1 million a year lining pipes to help prevent I. Since then, we've been focusing not only on pipes, but manholes. Manholes is our next biggest contributor. During rainfall events, groundwater raises, they become very flowing. So we've been focusing on lining those manholes without digging it all up, just lining them. That seems to be helping a lot. So every year we try and hit 3 to 5 manholes a year, just the highest ones that we've noticed are doing it, as well as identifying inflow from the surface. We identified a couple areas where during rainfall events, it wasn't being diverted. It was creating a real problem with our system. So seen real big spikes, 2022 probably. I think we had about $1 million almost in I that we got charged because it was a very rainy year. It was very evident that rain was creating a big problem for us. Since then, we've really helped deteriorate that. So yeah, each year we keep this operating project going so that we can continue to help alleviate the I.
Director, can you please also talk about the emergency storage pond that was built in the industrial park too?
Sure.
Thanks.
So as part of the Regional Wastewater Commission, their original design allocated or identified each lift station is to get a surge pond. So the surge ponds are identified for major rain events to really back up the effluent and then give it time to then get capacity and then flow out again. So prevent any flooding within the lift stations. They're not meant for permanent storage. They're meant for, I believe ours is identified as a maximum of 4 days of storage, drained out, cleaned, so that they don't hold effluent. They are just meant for surge only.
Okay, let's move on to garbage. Go to the garbage tab. And in your garbage tab, very similar to fire, there's two sets of kind of numbers in here. So the first one is 4,300, that's just strict garbage. And then the one after that is 4,301 for the transfer station. So one deals with solid waste and our garbage contract with E360, and the other one is the costs and expenses for a transfer station. So under this first one, we can see that there's two different sales of services. So that first number, that 877, that comes directly from our utility bills and what we charge back to the residents for their garbage services. There's a minor increase, there's a small increase that's worked into the contract year over year. That second line is kind of a new number. That is through EPR, or Extended Producer Responsibility, and that is the revenue that we are receiving currently from them to offset those recycling costs. As you can see on this slide here, the brunt of those extra costs that we're generating and the balance of this department is going back to pay off for the garbage carts. Once we pay off the garbage carts in full in 2027, then we'll be able to start reinvesting any balance to the utilities reserve. So we do see some salaries in here, just for some management. We do have some staff that they have to deal with certain levels of this department. We do see that postage expense as well, so they do have to pay for their fair share of the sending the utility bills out. But the big brunt of that contract is that contracted services, so that's directly from E360 and how that looks. Again, so EPR is still relatively new. We are under a contract with them until almost near the end of 2026. And then we'll be re-looking at what that program will look like depending on government intention. They will likely make some decisions and then kind of let us know coming up in future years. And then some supplies and goods, just generalized if you need anything.
So Director Vickers, can you tell everybody the cost for solid waste, for recycling, and for organics?
So that we charge the utility consumer on the bill, or what our actual cost breakdown is?
Yeah, and don't need it right now, but I think that'd be interesting for people to see.
Administration is preparing a report for Monday to go
Okay,
through
okay.
solid waste.
Okay,
Correct, Director?
Not for Monday.
Not for
Okay.
Monday? Okay, it's right, a
well, we
couple
can
weeks.
wait, but can wait till
Okay.
then, yeah, for sure.
One question, please. So I guess maybe that might be something we talk about when we have that report come forward, but just coming out of lots of conversations in the community, I have a question relative to the actual service itself, and the question being, is there any way that we can change the program so that our residents can have a choice of having smaller garbage bins because they don't fill them up on a week-to-week basis, or opt to have their garbage only picked up every 2 weeks for the same rationale. They only have one bag of garbage in their bin, and yet it's still being picked up every week. So is there an opportunity for us to review the relationship we have with our supplier as far as saying, can we have smaller garbage bins like they have in other communities, those kinds of options?
Our existing contract with E360 is up in 2028. So at this time, it would be a renegotiation of that contract. We could definitely look at our service and what level we provide. We purchase the carts ourselves, so that would be part of that renegotiation likely. As I've learned, other municipalities have the service provided through E360 where they provide the bins. Probably moving forward, that would be a recommendation, is that we remove ourselves out of the purchasing of the carts. So definitely, we could definitely reevaluate that in 2028 or 2027 likely is when we would reevaluate that need.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
If we move on to inside the same tab, but move to the transfer station. So we'll see at the top there, they do have some revenue, and these are the transfer station fees. So when a resident or someone takes garbage there to the transfer station, they do have to pay a fee for that, so that's where that revenue comes from. We do see some salaries from our full-time staff there, but we do have a permanent part-time position that covers all hours that's opened. So that's what that part-time wage is. It is a year-round staff member on every Wednesday and Saturday to kind of cover that cost. Telecommunications, that it does have a cell phone for that location for the staff member. Recycling services, so this is just a generalized cost if we need to send something specific out for recycling. We do have a number of different bins there that hold different types of things, and once they get full, they do have to get sent out. Repairs and maintenance, $10,000, really kind of covers cleaning out the branch pit, or if we ever did need anything for the little shack that's there, kind of we do have some availability for there. That requisition is part of that, we were part of that old landfill that we're just kind of now monitoring it. So we have to pay a requisition every year. It used to kind of fluctuate. It would go 6,000, 12,000, 8,000, 14,000. So they've kind of leveled off, and they've kind of said leveled off. So we've kind of maintained it at that 15,000 now. And then again, this transfer to reserve, so it takes both of these departments and combines them together and nets both as a garbage entity down to one. So the other department kind of might have a little bit more, but this kind of offsets it. So we are looking to transfer 238,302 back into reserves now.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Just one question then to Director Vickers. The sales of service, are you anticipating an increase of demand or are you raising rates?
So we have not raised the rates for the transfer station, but more consistently charging accurately to our schedule.
I assume, like, you monitor the use at the transfer station and the volume, and do you see that staying steady, increasing? Do we need a transfer station?
I'd have to get back to you in regards to tracking the volumes in the transfer station. Because I don't think I have tracked that before, so we can definitely get back to you when I bring it forward on the 8th.
Mayor Barkley, are you looking for like a viability review if we need a transfer station? That might take a little more than just a week or so, but.
What?
Just wait, yeah.
No, I'm just curious. I don't know how many communities have transfer stations, and, you know, I think a lot of people head to Horn Hills, but, you know, I'm not even sure if it's a question that anybody wants to broach, but I do question whether.
Right. Yeah, we track, monitor the weight that we transfer out for garbage as well as recycling, all that stuff. So I'll provide you probably a 3-year history of what that's been.
Okay, that'd be great, thanks.
Can you just cycle through and see if we can get to it? Yeah, let's stop at this one. So these are our proposed rates after looking at the number of utility departments. Again, we're seeing water increase by 33 cents and then sewers increasing by 23 cents. And all of our other flat charges are currently staying the same. But roughly, as kind of we talked about on Friday, the average resident based on 10 cubic meters will see an increase per month of $5.60. And I don't know, serendipitous, that is the exact increase that we saw last year as well. So $5.60 on 10 cubes for 25, and then we're seeing the same increase for 26.
And just extrapolate out the water rate at 15% per year for
Yeah, so we're
X years.
gonna look at and extrapolate that out and provide that to you guys as well. Because they did indicate in their meeting that they would be doing.
So there is going to be a communications piece that comes out to all municipalities from the administration at the commission. But I did have a conversation with the board chair this morning, and 15% this year, likely nothing less than 10% a year moving forward. So he had made a comment at the meeting about 15% a year, but he clarified that as saying 10% for the extended future.
Can you go to the next slide? One more again. So we always typically compare ourselves to people kind of on the same corridor as us. And to be honest, we're kind of right where we always tend to sit. Bowden and Penhold are always typically a little bit less than us. And then everyone else on the line is kind of a little bit higher than us. So it is where we want to sit. But just kind of showing that out there. And what are your guys' thoughts on that?
And I think it's important too, Director Vickers, so everybody charges differently, so some can have very high flat fees, and they're charging a much lesser per cube.
Yeah.
So, you know, when people are comparing community to community, it's important to keep that in mind, and like
Penhold has identified that they do have different flat rates for like institutional, commercial, and multifamily apart from residential, so those rates would be even higher than that.
I think Sylvan has a fairly high flat rate, do they not?
Sylvan Lake? Yeah, water flat, Sylvan Lake has a $43 flat rate. So that sheet is in your binders under the water tab. We do have the rates broken out by each of these groups, so you could look at those numbers kind of specifically as well. we have the lowest flat rate of all the entities there. You have Bowden at 15, Penn holds at 20.25, Olds at 14.63, you have Sylvan Lake at that 43.49, Black Falls at 24.30, and then Lacombe at 32.82.
And we've talked about that in the past, kind of as a philosophy, so if you're thinking about conservation and user pay, I think that's why we kind of went for a lower flat rate and decided to do a larger per cube rate.
And as it works out, that we still end up being a little
Yeah.
bit lower than some of those entities that have those larger flat rates for us, right? So, and Bowden's rates they are technically the 2026 rates, but they have not incorporated those increases. So they might still apply a 33-cent increase as well, or, yeah. And then the only other item is Black Falls. For their wastewater consumption, they only charge 80% versus everyone else charges 100%, so. So, any comments on the utility as a whole, or? No? Okay. Okay, well, let's move on to FCSS. Okay. So, the main chunk of revenue here is the FCSS grant that we do receive from the government. So that is just under $217,000 for 2026. It is unchanged from 2025. We did just receive, I guess we received an increase. It was about $9,000 or so that we received here not so long ago. From that grant fund of 216, there is a required tax funds that the town is required to contribute of $54,234. But as you can see there, that our tax requirement is sitting at $172,000 that we've actually are contributing this year, so that we're well within our limits for contributing for FCSS. So we do have some of our staff members coming out of here, and we do have one part-time staff that's funded out of this budget, and they help with a number of areas. Staff development did decrease slightly this year. Most other things were static and stayed the same, and then supplies and goods went down a little bit to $1,000 as well. Other than that, internal programs and grants to others remains the same this year. And Director Jenkins can comment on any questions about FCSS or.
Sure, I guess I can just give council an overview of that $105,000 of grants, who that typically goes to. So in 2025, we granted out $59,000 to Chinook's Edge Family School Wellness Workers, $2,500 to the Men's Shed, $25,000 to the Chinook's Edge YES program, so that's the Youth Empowerment and Support, $18,500 to the Seniors Drop-In Center, and that was the balance of the grants.
Okay, is there any questions on that?
I have a question. I might have another one too, but I appreciate that Red Deer County is a part of the greater Red Deer FCSS, so they would be making their contributions there. Do we receive anything from Red Deer County relative to the program and the supports that we're giving mainly to Chinook's Edge School Division, plus Seniors or Men's Shed? But do we get anything from the county for those?
We do not. I'm not sure if through Red Deer and District, if they, or what their contributions are to Chinook's Edge or Red Deer Catholic, but not through us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the cemetery. So this year, we do have a fairly good chunk of revenue coming out of this department. The brunt of that does come from open and closed graves, as well as plot and columbarium sales. Plot and columbarium sales, we are seeing a little bit of a downward trend. People have, the last couple of years, it's kind of gone down. But open and close of graves has remained fairly steady. Perpetual care, we have talked about that. So this is a charge that when you buy a new plot, you have to pay for the kind of future maintenance, whenever that may be, for that plot. And 100% of those dollars that we collect in from perpetual care goes into reserves, into the perpetual care reserve, which will become a restricted reserve to be used for the cemetery. So you can see that that line on 4421 and that transfer to reserve will end up being equal. So if we end up bringing in $12,000, that transfer to reserve line will become $12,000. It is a direct in and out on our budget. The permit line there, that really is kind of the markers that go on when someone needs to go in and put a headstone. They call in and they apply. We send a staff out to go mark the spot so that they can guarantee that that's the right plot that they're looking for. And there is a small charge to do that. And then Red Deer County does contribute $5,000 towards the cemetery for that. We have salaries for some of our, a portion of our full-time staff. This department does cover one, it does pay for one part-time staff. That doesn't mean that only one of our staff members is working in the cemetery in the summer. It's just they're only costing for one, but generally when it's, we'll send the whole team out there. Under the operating projects, this is one that kind of shifts back and forth year after year to open up a new set of, a new block for graves. It's kind of the cemetery runner that kind of goes underneath at the head where all the headstones will kind of sit on. So we will be doing another one this year. And everything else kind of remains unchanged, so repairs and maintenance, supplies and goods, just if we need to manage kind of any of those things.
And maybe Director Vickers or Director Jenkins, you could maybe give a little brief overview of the cemetery work that was done with the consultant that came in, and or Director Kennedy. See everybody.
Sure, I remember what year it was. It was in...
I don't know.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
2018.
Was.
2019 maybe.
Yeah, it's my first term.
Yeah, we had a consultant, cemetery consultant, come in, do an evaluation of our existing cemetery and how we can maximize the life of the cemetery. What they did is they provided us with some phasing to do infill design. So really maximizing the use of the existing area of the cemetery. So what they determined is based on doing some infill design work, we could extend the life of the cemetery for another additional 20 years, I believe. So that's the report that we have. We haven't moved forward with anything from the report because we are still maximizing the existing plots, adding the runners as we need. One of the areas that we will be looking for as a capital investment will be in regards to our columbarium. So we are down to our last columbarium section that we can add. So we need to plan ahead, get a couple years. So we will be coming forward for a request to work on that columbarium, and as well as the focus on cremation plots versus full plots. The proposed design showed a new columbarium as well as a cemetery cremation design as well. So we'll get bringing that forward to council here in a little more information.
Thanks, Your Worship. Question to Director Kennedy. I know, every year the cemetery kind of gets hit with some type of vandalism and stuff, and I think with the previous council, we talked about cameras and how do we best remedy that. Was there any thought from administration as to how we may want to handle that in the future, or, that's what I want to bring up as to, it seems to be every year, every couple of years kind of thing. How do we mitigate that? And as to columbariums, I think, and smaller plots, it makes sense for us to move in that direction, I think sooner than later. Thanks.
Councilor, I said, so in regards to the vandalism, I think it definitely, as per it comes and goes. It comes in waves within town. This year, it's been fairly quiet so far. Last year, yeah, we did have a run where somebody went through and knocked over a bunch of the headstones, but there hasn't been any talk of cammering or any other additional work within the cemetery itself.
have a question to ask. Sorry, I hummed and hawed. So currently, if the average plot, how many cremations do we allow to be buried in those plots in addition to the coffins, or do we do that?
So Mayor Barkley through to Councillor Wing, so it depends on the plot size. So if you buy a full-size plot, you can put one casket in the bottom and you can put up to 3 cremated remains on top. And with a cremation plot, they are smaller, so you can't fit a casket, so you can just put the 3 cremated remains on top.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to planning. Okay, so we'll go through the different types of revenue here. So at the top, 4519, so it says permit, so does the one below it. The top one is specifically those plumbing, electrical, and gas permits. This is received by Superior. We get 20% of the revenue of all the sorry? 40. 40? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's 40%, sorry. I had my notes wrong, I'll just update that. 40% of all of those costs come directly to the town. The next item for 10,000, so those are development permits. So those are the permits that we kind of issue ourselves. There's no change on there. No change on compliance certificates as well. Safety code fees only slightly increased just due to kind of historical actuals. Subdivision application fees, we do put in a $5,000 limit in there. It is just based on subdivision activity, so sometimes we don't have that revenue at all. The next one is building permits. So again, this did increase, and this is based on permits issued by Superior, and we get a percentage based on that. Other applications did go up to $3,000 just due to historical kind of numbers. Offsite levy, again, this is one of those transfers to reserve lines that kind of is just an in and an out on our books. So we're budgeting 150 because we're anticipating some increased activity in that area with all the new things that are coming on. However, if it's only 75,000, then down below there's a transfer to the offsite levy reserve under 5243. That's just an in and an out. So whatever that number ends up being will kind of end up being that on the expense side. Transfers to reserves, we are looking at pulling in 70,000 from reserves, and that is to help. That is to offset that operating project of the Woodlands Area Structure Plan to come out of there. So we do have our salaries and benefits that come out of here. Staff development and training and travel and subsistence both have decreased, just according to need. All freight expense also decreased. Building inspections, so that's $60,000. So that is our portion of the cost that we have to pay for that revenue of those building expenses. Same with plumbing and gas expenses. This is our expense on those costs. Safety code levy, you see that $31.50. It's also an in and an out. So we charge residents safety code levy on some of their permits, and then we then have to pay that back to the province, right? So it also is also an in and an out. Then we see that transfer to offsite levy reserve sitting there. Again, it's an in and an out. The operating project, we see that. So that's the Woodlands Area Structure Plan, and Director Jenkins can speak to that in a minute. You'll see the line here, planning services. So it has jumped from 10,000 to 65,000. As everyone might remember from Friday, that we did remove the planner position from our budget. And due to that, we still need certain planning activities completed. So in lieu of having that position, we did have to increase this cost here through PCPS if we do need to expend out some of those. And then the other big thing that changed was the grants to others. So that is our facade and infill program. So the facade has gone up from 10,000 to 15,000, and then the infill has gone up from 60 to 80,000. Yeah.
A little bit. So just on that operating project, so the Woodlands Area Structure Plan, again, I mentioned last week, this will be development activity dependent. This area structure plan hasn't been updated for a number of years. This South Woodlands area, so this is the area south of the Baptist Church west of 52nd, so sort of towards the south overpass at the south end of town. It's a challenging area to service as well. There is a large number of landowners in that area, so the coordination of multiple landowners is complicated, and depending on who starts first, how you approach that servicing can change. So we have had some activity from the Hereford Meadows development area, so that's, if you've been around for a long time, was the Hereford Center at one point, but is sort of directly across from Sunset Manor. And then there's, on the other side of Woodland Road is the Laybon Woodlands Estate area. So depending on which one of those land developers would decide to proceed first would impact how the servicing and the planning of that area goes. So this is sort of sitting there as potential dollars. Again, it will be funded from reserves, so doesn't impact the tax requirement, as it would come directly out of that. And then again, just on the facade and infill program, just for a little bit of background. So the facade program has been around since 2012 and has been at that $10,000 a year since then. Since 2012, there's been $113,000 expended to 29 business locations. The infill program has been around since 2019. That 60,000 has been constant, but we actually didn't allocate any money until 2022 was the first successful applicant through that program. And then since we had one expended in 2022, 2 in 2024, and then 4 of them in 2025, and we fully expended the 60,000 this year.
Did you want to say something?
Only to complement the director's comments, last council you saw in their strategy, housing was highest priority through the work of the director and the team. Did assessment and need to build so many houses by a certain year to maintain into a market. So the Napoleon South is going to achieve 2 to 3 years-ish.
Based on sort of previous average lot absorption.
Yeah. It's going really well. So the question would be, what's next? So I believe part of the planning that this project is helping with that, what's next, because ideally you'd want the private investment to, instead of using our own capital, what is next? So I think at some point to be an in-camera discussion, looking around the community on those respective landowners, developers, and have a more extensive conversation of what's occurring in the community, give you a sense of awareness, but also help to set that new plan for beyond the Napoleon South project.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, Director Jenkins, and maybe at some point in time, so much of the housing initiatives, whether federal, provincial, a lot of talk around fees, development fees and stuff. I don't know where ours land as far as being competitive. I assume that they're reasonable, compared to larger urbans, but does that need to be reviewed so that potentially there's, funding that could come from other levels of government into, I don't know, there's been a lot of noise about it lately, like even in the federal, what's it called, said it this morning, like there's a communities building fund from the federal government that was just announced in the budget, and even some of the verbiage within that is around those development fees that municipalities are charging. And
I guess typically we are on the low side and the fast side.
I'm sure we are.
Housing has been a topic of conversation as long as I've been around this table, and we have not moved those fees up. You get to larger urban centers where it does take months to get permits. We're talking days at the most sometimes. Our offsite levies have not been updated since 2015.
We talked about that a few months ago too.
Yeah, so they're very low in the region as well, and are likely not contributing as much towards those future projects as they they would have been targeted for when that was adopted in 2015, just based on the costs of the projects themselves. So I certainly don't think that fees or levies are a barrier
Yeah.
compared to our neighbors here.
So, like in the future, I don't know how hard it is to compile that information, but, you know, so that we know where we land, so that we can maybe talk about it and, compare to other neighboring municipalities or along the QE2 corridor. And because I think it's a great selling feature for not only the fee amount, but also how quick that you can respond to requests and get permits approved, and 'cause I know you're lightning fast.
Yes,
As
we are
long
quick.
As long as the documentation is there.
Yeah, we can certainly bring some updated information around offsite levy rates. That was probably 2 years ago, the last time we did sort of a survey of everyone else in the region. But yeah, that we can do a quick
Is that available,
update.
like when somebody comes and, you know, they're an investor looking, like, do you have that information kind of at your fingertips to say, oh, look at Innisfail? And I know that one gentleman met with in Calgary when I was down there with John at the Stampede, was like he was saying, talking about the rental rates in Innisfail that like when he did his research, they were quite low. They were not current.
So we get the province does an annual report on
Okay.
Rental and vacancy
Okay.
that gets distributed to every municipality, that gives us those rates. With respect to offsite levies, generally we have our own rates. Most developers are pretty aware of the difference.
Okay.
We're in the neighborhood of about $24,000 a hectare. I believe Red Deer is well over 100.
Okay. Yeah.
So they know those
Okay.
those amounts, but we can update that comparison for council's awareness
Like
as
this
well.
gentleman was mentioning, like when he looked at Innisfail, it was demonstrating $900 a month or something in rental rates. Well, that's a far cry from probably what they actually are nowadays. But I think the other thing that we see, and probably more of a strategic planning discussion, but you know, I think even looking at commercial and industrial space and leasing available, I think that's, I would say that's getting in very short supply in the community as well. So I don't know if we keep an inventory on that or work with.
Yeah, we don't, I guess necessarily in terms of what the target amount
Yeah.
is available, but we do keep property inventories available
Yeah.
for John and Gord that,
Yeah.
you know, they know what's available when different inquiries come in.
Just saying kind of anecdotally, I hear that
Yeah.
in the community that there seems to be a shortage or there's a shortage in commercial space.
It is a challenge in that respect too, because it's the same as the housing conversation, because we could ask everyone in the room here and they would have a different idea
Yeah.
of what the housing product is
Yeah.
that we are in most need of, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to subdivision or land development. So we do have some land rental income. So the big chunk of this is the Deep Sky land lease. There's some elemental solar leases in there, and then various land leases that we do lease out to people around town kind of comes in there. And the big chunk is our land sales. It is just an estimate. We are estimating about $2.5 million coming out next year. We have a large chunk of the new Southwest residential area opened up. About 70% is conditionally sold, closing in 26 or 27. So that's where a chunk of that is. There is some staff salaries as well as some benefits. Engineering services specifically related to land development comes out of this department. This department is another department very similar to utilities where it kind of nets itself to zero. It does not take any tax funded dollars to kind of pay for it. So in this, there is an operating project for $20,000, and that goes towards the marketing of those industrial lots, just to put a larger focus on those lots and get them out there to try and get those sold. Just 1 second here. So contracted services, so these are like legal costs related to land sales, any realtor costs, land titles, charges, that kind of comes out of there. Subdivision and land, so there is still some need for some Napoleon Meadows trees in there, so hopefully that should kind of clear that up after that one. Supplies and goods, that's staying steady at 1,000, so that's just if we need signs for lots for sale or other kind of supplies and goods for that kind of area. So this surplus to reserve, again, is kind of this netting down to zero for this entire department, so this likely will change by the end of next year. It could be more if all of a sudden we sell more lots, or it could be much less if some transfer, we don't get them sold, they get moved to 27 or things like that. And then the other big thing out of this department is the mortgage payment for that Southwest Industrial land. It is broken up in the sheet for mortgage interest and principal, so you can see in 26 we'll be paying $254,000 in interest and $472 in mortgage principal. Any questions on that?
I just have a question for Director Kennedy. If our inclement weather has had a negative impact on the Southwest residential development, and I know everybody, you were trying so hard to get things ready, and how that is impacted with the snowfall.
The inclement weather, less of an impact. It was more the schedule, urban prime contractor schedule, getting things done. Definitely made some impact in regards to getting the last bit of curb done. We had to heat and hoard it, so we will be incurring a little bit of cost there. And then working with Proline, obviously this is creating a little bit more work for them with the frost. So definitely has made some impact, but strong contractor in Proline, can't say enough that they've been very good to work with in dealing with the situation that they have in front of us, and appreciate the efforts they're putting forward to get the work done this year. Yep.
Just in relation to council's previous conversation regarding mortgage, certainly didn't want to demonstrate pushback administratively on council getting that information. I just want to make sure council is aware that there's a lot to it. To advance it into pre-budget approval would be tough. There's a lot of impacts to the different reserves, but certainly we'll seek your direction to gather that information, but just create a little bit of caution on advancing it quickly without the strong knowledge of council, without the information. So that's, just want to make it clear that if you want the information rightfully, then we certainly gather that. But it certainly gives us a little bit of time to look at the financial picture of the town, as it does have impact the different reserves and so forth. So if I'm clear, I'm not sure, but certainly willing to take your direction.
Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, the only, maybe I wasn't listening, it's after lunch. The land sales piece, Director Vickers, it's, I thought you said 70 to 80% with the Southwest side. So am I right, or did I eat too many noodles?
No, you are correct, Councillor Hystad. So up for the residential subdivision, I think it's about 72%.
Yeah, so based on lots, like just number of lots, we're 72% conditionally sold. The money is not in the bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, and then from a revenue side, sort of projected revenue to what is sold, we're at about 68%.
Okay, no, that's really good.
Yeah.
Thanks. I was awake.
Yeah, so major jump. I thought we were at like 16 pre-solds.
So we have now, I need my sign out of there.
Okay,
So
bring your sign in.
Yeah, we can bring the sign in the back. So all 4 of the townhouse lots are spoken for.
Good.
We're just
Okay.
working on the paperwork there. The commercial and the apartment site at the South End are sold. 5 of the 11 R1B, so those are the larger lots at the North End. Oh, I've got it right here. 5 of the 15, the smaller lot R2s are sold, and then 8 of the 10 or 4 of the 5 duplex lots are all sold as
great.
well. So again, on the Yeah, we can just sit it there. The purchase agreement side, so we're just working through getting all of those.
Walk by it every day and don't even look at it.
Well, so some of it is just in the last week or so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's looking really good, and I think springtime, some of the larger lots on the north side will move sort of when they're available, that people can purchase them and begin construction right away.
So going back to, I guess, the staffing situation, I know we had an intern for a bit, which was wonderful. You know, and we've seen quite an increase to the PCPS, and I think from what we heard that the intern was so valuable in the sense that some of the work that she was able to do for us, like considering how busy things are, like are you?
Yes and no. Development activity is sometimes hard to gauge too. So, so PCPS, so Parkland Community Planning, processes our subdivision applications currently. Our intern and her sort of unique set of design and architecture skills certainly augmented this process and project. I guess depending where we go as a community as well, if this is our last kick at land development, as opposed to if it's something we're going to pursue on a more regular basis, again, what kind of skills we would need. Replacing someone like Pallavi will be very challenging. So at this point, we've sort of determined until we know, if Hazelwood and Bella Vista and some of these start moving forward with additional phases, and we're going to have that activity. But until we have some certainty on that front, I don't know that the workload warrants the full-time position.
And I guess something for council to consider going forward would be, you see a lot of discussion out of the provincial government that we need to be more creative at the municipal level because there's not any money coming from there. So we have to find ways outside of our typical means of raising revenue. And I'm not looking for an answer today, but would this be one of them? So is there a return on investment that makes sense to us to keep doing this and helps with our revenue situation? And that answer may be no, but it's just something for us to consider, not to necessarily be completely closed-minded because this hasn't been a typical municipal area. It has here, but
yes.
But
and I guess for the benefit of the rest of council is that Innisfil is a bit of an outlier in that the municipality has acted as the developer in large portions of the town, where most other communities, Red Deer's a bit of an exception. They've done some land development, but communities our size and communities in this region generally fully rely on private developer activity for land development. So.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to campground tab then. Okay. So we do see land rental income. This income is, the Lions Club does collect rent, and we do have a contract and agreement with them to provide us a certain level of revenue back to the town. There's some nominal repairs and maintenance that we do cover. The brunt of it is the utility costs that we do cover for the organization. We are seeing some slight increases to natural gas and electricity for the 2026 year. And then we do have a transfer to reserve that we put in there if we were need to replace the bathroom or the cook shack or even the playground. Then we have some funds coming in for that. Any comments or questions?
Mayor Barkley, I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but again, so our income is not matching our expenses. Why are we not increasing the costs to someone to camp on that campground to offset our costs?
Mayor Barkley through to Councilor Russell. So we have an agreement with the Lions Club. So that agreement is up for renewal, I think, next year, at the end of next year? At the end of next year, which then we will re-renew. What the terminology could say, and even reference that you must fund the entire department. It's hard to kind of set in stone a department over future years that doesn't incorporate those increases to those utility costs, because that's really where the brunt of that increase has come from, is those utility costs across the last number of years. So we'll be having those discussions, specifically Director Kennedy will have those discussions with the Lions Club for sure, when it comes time to renew that agreement.
Yeah, just when I see things like this, Mayor Berkeley, I mean, people using that campground, in my opinion, should be paying for the
not be a
costs
tax-funded
associated. It
program,
shouldn't be the
right?
taxpayers of the community paying to subsidize campers in that campground.
Yeah, am I ahead of you?
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. No, I would agree with that one. I think that this contract's been going on probably 10 years, 8 years. 5 years? Yeah, and I remember being on council when I was a lot skinnier in some of those pictures. But we weren't making anything. And then we flipped it over to the Lions. And I think that I would agree with Councillor Russell that we need to look at that one for sure. So, thanks.
Yeah, just a quick question, like, I see the E360 bins are in there for garbage, like, is that, the town just absorbs that cost?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, I just for like garbage, because obviously that's an operational cost that they don't have to incur either. Not saying it's, probably not a whole lot, but it is an item, if there's gonna be, I don't know how often they get filled up, but just a question, just if that was recorded somewhere in there, if that's just a non-item.
Just one quick question as well, sorry. Do we actually collect the data on how the campground is used, or does the Lions Club just maintain that and keep it for themselves?
The campground, the Lions records that. Typically, they come every year and provide you with an update. Mr. Reinhardt hasn't asked for that yet, but I'm assuming they will probably in the new year, once they get their financials done. They typically will come to the town and provide you with an update.
Maybe a suggestion could be profit sharing.
Okay, is there any further questions on campground, or we'll move on? Okay, we'll go to economic development. Okay, so we do have a small revenue. It's really just coming from reserves, and I say reserves is when we do the final year-end quarterly financials and doing the surplus, we will be looking to take this $50,000 from the 2025 year that is unspent, and we'll be bringing it over and carrying it over into next year to help fund the majority of the operating project that's in this department, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we do have the salaries. Primarily, this is our economic development officer. We do have some training for him as well. Travel and subsistence and registration fees have both been decreased this year. So local intel is sitting there for subscriptions and publications. The membership fees has increased up to $25,000, and inside that is CAPE at $10,000, CATA at $5,000, and then CAF at $10,000. Again, we're seeing that $80,000 Power of Place update, and again, we're carrying that $50,000 over from 2025. Contracted services, that's just kind of CED support, a little bit of supplies and goods cost, and then we did previously have grants to others to support just external organizations in the community. We have moved that to the wish list or the unfunded list now at this point. And Juanita, can you just go to the very next slide? It just kind of shows some of the economic development activities that this department wants to or plans to undertake kind of next year. And any questions, I'm sure Director Jenkins would be happy. No? Okay. We'll move on to communications. So this funds out our communications department. It covers a portion of the 2 staff members that are there and their benefits. Staff development and training decreased. Most other things kind of didn't change the same. A big brunt of this department is their advertising and promotions. So that is sitting at $50,000, and that covers a wide range of all kind of advertising activities that they undertake, whether it print media, digital marketing, swag that we're buying, any kind of all that kind of stuff. We do have equipment under 5K. They do have a number of pieces of equipment that we have to monitor. We do have a camera, just in case if we have to buy any pieces or things like that on it. And then the special events does come out of this budget as well, and that has increased from 45 to 55,000. The big change on that is that fireworks has been moved out of the council budget, put into this budget. We were able to absorb it last year as kind of the first year it happened, and next year, no, we're looking to increase that number. Any comments or questions about communications? Okay, we'll move on to community services. So in 2024, or 2025, the beginning of 2025, we did used to have community services admin and community services program, and we have combined them. So this is the second year now that we've had these departments kind of combined out. So rentals and leases at the top, it's sitting at, for 2026, it's sitting at $25,000. So again, these are part of that joint use contract that we have with Chinook's Edge and do the rentals through there. Miscellaneous revenue is down to 10. The next grant funds, we're seeing 43,415. So there is 2 different items in there. So the first item is $20,000 from the Soul Elemental Energy grant. So that's in there, as well as the LGFF operating in $23,415. So that also comes out of here. And Red Deer County does contribute $15,000 to this department as well. We do have salaries and some part-time wages, and this covers any kind of activities that they need. Most of the items are unchanged for staff development and training, travel and subsistence, repairs or registration fees. We do see that joint use expense line on here. It is currently sitting with a 0 budget. The joint use committee is the committee that makes those decisions on what supplies to purchase through that. So that joint use money that we get in, so that $25,000 at the top, at the end of the year, we're going to take whatever dollar amounts in there, we're going to subtract any expenses that we've paid for the year, and the balance of that goes directly into a reserve that's restricted for use for the schools for that joint use committee to go around and make some decisions on buying, whether or not what they can need to buy. So really that money we don't keep it, it doesn't hit our budget. It is an in and an out based on a number of factors. Contracted services is in this line, and this is for instructors. So things like the yoga or other things like that we are providing to the town. So that transfer to the reserve line sitting at $25,000. Again, that number will change at the end of the year, just based on what those other numbers are. So we have 2 grants to others lines. So in the first one is $43,000. So the first one of that is the Historical Village, sitting at $30,000. And then we have community grants sitting at 13. 10 of that, it's kind of split into a 10 and 3 kind of situation. In the 5771 grants to others, it's sitting at $25,000. So 20 of that is that elemental energy grant that we grant back out. So again, it comes in as revenue and we grant it all back out at the end of the year. And then we have $5,000 that we've attributed internally. Before this year, it was primarily pool passes that we would identify that in. We don't want to take the elemental energy grant and then grant out pool passes that is just an internal dollar change. So we're just taking that money and paying it to ourselves. So we felt that to be fair to the grant and to the residents, that we would kind of offer that internally ourselves. And we have expanded that to be pool or pace bus passes, because as you know, for the next couple of months, the pool will not be open. So is there any questions that anyone has here? And the Historical Village, along with people like the library, will be asked to come in, present to council, likely in the new year sometime, just to kind of showcase what they've been doing and kind of give you all the deets of what they've been up to. we'll move on to the arena. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so we'll go through the revenue for the arena. So we do see advertising. We do have $24,000 in advertising revenue for the arena. So there's a number of rentals and leases line. So the first one, 4560. So that is ice rentals. So we are seeing, so minor hockey, the Eagles, anyone who rents ice comes through here. 4561, so these are all of our meeting room rentals. So that $7,500 covers the room upstairs, things like that. 4563 is the dry surface rental. So in the summertime, when the ice is out and it's lacrosse or kind of whatever ball hockey type stuff, they would come in here and they would still rent that under there. And the last one is our lease spaces renewal. So we lease out the concession. We lease out some of the change rooms or those storage rooms for year-round use. So that kind of that revenue comes out of there. And then we do see that Red Deer County contribution sitting at $207,000. We're in the final 2 years of our agreement, so we did see kind of a bump up this year on some of those fees. So we do cover salaries, and we have a number of part-time staff that operate throughout the winter, as well as some summer staff in there, and then staff development and training. And other than that, not any of those costs changed for the year. Telecommunications, again, we pay for internet and a number of phone lines in there. Equipment repairs and maintenance, so a lot of that is the ice machine, the ice plant, although that repairs and equipment in the background. Contracted services, so some of those things are like the security costs for the cameras, arena board cleaning, ice painting, things like that. This is the one area where we did not move the janitorial supplies. So in all of the other departments, we moved the janitorial supplies to the facilities department to manage. But because this is a higher used facility and generally they need a lot more control over their own janitorial supplies, we have left it in here for that manager to kind of manage. And then we see those utilities unchanged, and then they are looking to transfer $100,000 into reserves to help fund future investments.
Director Vickers, may I ask you, like every other department, we've seen electricity costs increase, but we're not here.
No, we in the review, it was still seen as an appropriate number for the year.
Sorry, Barclay, is that partial to the fact that we did get some lighting upgrades there as well that kind of made it a little more efficient, or?
The lighting has all been done at the arena, but just sort of comparing to previous actuals, we're still comfortable with that $100,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barclay. Again, we're seeing a slight increase in expenses here, but we're not seeing an increase, I don't think, in our rental and leases that we're charging. My concern is if we leave it and don't bring it up some, is all of a sudden you're caught in a year where you've let the 1 or 2% increase develop into a 10% increase. Rather than, when I do it, I think it works out to maybe $10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to do that and just say we're going to increase the fee, ice rental fee by $1 an hour now rather than $10 an hour 10 years from now, I think it's easier for those organizations to stomach, and it offsets our increasing costs as it happens, not trying to play catch up. And when you have those big lump sums, when you do nothing for a number of years, that's when it's harder for some of those groups to absorb and digest that type of an increase. So
We do anticipate increasing fee rates this year. Typically with the arena, we would do the fee, adopt the bylaw January 1st or with your budget, but that they don't come into effect until September 1st or when hockey season essentially. So the revenue impact is typically pretty nominal, even if we do a 2 or a 4%. We can incorporate that into that line. All of our leases for space, so the Eagles hockey team leases space as well as Innisfail Minor Hockey rents an office space and the concession. Those all have 2% escalators in the lease rates, so they move up annually as we go through.
So I guess my question is would you guys like us to incorporate an increase to those rates into the budget and then bring in a corresponding rates and fees bylaw to anticipate those increases to rates?
Councillor Russell?
And personally, I'd like to see that, but I'm just one of 7 on council. So, yeah.
Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, we need to address it, and the approach that Councillor Russell's looking at is a minimal, it's a hit, but it's not a long-term hit where you're 5-10 years out of the, down the road.
So when you're talking about the increase, like Director Jenkinson saying there's already a 2%.
For the space rentals,
Yes.
We would be looking at doing a 2 to 4% increase on the sort of hourly ice rates
Okay.
that we haven't.
I thought those were built in too.
Pardon me?
I thought we had built that in as well.
We have not in the
Okay.
fee schedules. They haven't been increasing. We can certainly do that.
So that has been worked in other areas, like the cemetery rates and fees portion has worked in at 2% based on what the bylaw kind of indicates. So every year when I do, that will look like we will increase those rates by 2%. We can incorporate that into other rates as well, an automatic 2% a year or 2.5% a year.
Well, I think it should be changed depending on what the inflation rate is, and, the CPI may not be a reflective rate for municipal operations. So I think that should be looked at, and maybe it's 2%, maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 4%, I don't know. But I don't know, I think it was when Stuart was still here, there was we did a review of all the rates and the rates in the area. And certainly Innisfail was, again, on the low side compared to Olds and whatnot. So, and I know we have that philosophy that we want to have, we want to ensure there's fair access to the community. But yeah, I think we should be certainly doing an analysis. Who's up? Councillor
Yes,
Hill.
I was just going to say, I like the idea of having something that's kind of preset, especially for these organizations, a little bit of a forecast of, a 2% per year might be able for them to budget. I totally understand that, you don't want to be overcharging and then undercharging, but if a person were to find there was agreeable terms of a 1.5% going to be just to set the principle, so that way they know what to budget for every year. There might be a little bit of an adjustment after the 5 years, but at least it gets them a lot closer than playing the catch-up like Councilor Russell said. But yeah, I think just a set rate for a 5-year projection for some of this stuff would probably be a lot easier for them to stomach.
Councillor McKellar.
Mayor Barkley, through to, I'm a little tired here right now. Okay, through to Councillor Vickers. So am I seeing in this budget then the 2026 revenues, and when we look at the rental and the rentals and leases, is those reflective of an increase, or are those status quo to last year?
So the number is status quo to last year, yeah.
Okay.
If we're going in to increase the rates for the ice rentals, we'll increase all of the rates. Like, we'll go through and do a review of all of them.
Okay, thank you. And I would support Councillor Russell's position on this.
I would support it as well. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, was on my list. I think it's an important one that we have a conversation about.
Any other comments on that, or we'll move on to the Aquatic Center? So the Aquatic Center is currently closed. We do anticipate an opening kind of April, May, somewhere in there. I'm not sure of the exact date, if it's changed yet or not, but
Still April at this point. There's no date.
so we do still anticipate us still generating a good chunk of revenues with a new department, or not a new department, sorry, it's effectively a brand-new facility once it kind of will reopen. We'll be looking to do a service level review and looking at all those rates and kind of making sure that we're being appropriate there. But we still will have admission fees and lesson fees. Once that starts, the schools will come back. Probably not in the first half, this definitely the second half of the year. Season tickets and Aquafit tickets also. We do have a vending machine in there that we do generate some revenue. Rentals and leases for renting out the room there. And then again, they do see a mimic of Red Deer County's contribution, just like the arena did. With salaries, we haven't really amended the salaries for the year yet. We are paying our full-time staff still continuously through the closure. However, the part-time staff, we didn't edge it down yet. Before we bring back our staff, we will have to go and have them all recertified, anyone that we're bringing back of our old staff. That means booking time in another facility, paying them for that time, and getting them recertified. So we don't know what that's going to look like yet by the end of the year. So again, that staff and training likely could go up this next year, depending on what that looks like. All the other things kind of we remained unchanged. I did note that Mayor Barkley on Friday kind of spoke about the natural gas to lower that down to $50,000, not take that increase yet this year. Likely what we'd have to do is let 26 kind of run through after the new facility has been completed, and probably even into 27, just to get a full year of actuals on what the energy costs are going to be for that department. So we can look to lowering that for this budget, and just hoping that we are where we are at the end of the year, right? And then we'll have that discussion at the end of the year, but then we can save that $10,000 off of this budget currently. However, a lot of the other things, like even the utility costs now, we likely are spending a little bit more money in utilities to keep the facility warm and with everything that's happening in there. It's not essentially a sealed facility right now through the construction, so they are really having to make sure it is heated for both what they're doing, with whether it's cement or masonry work or once they get to drywall, or even just for the employees that are working there, kind of thing. And then we do identify $1,000 or $100,000 to transfer to reserves as well, to go towards future maintenance.
So I'm curious, Director Vickers, I guess going back to Councillor Russell's comments, like on the arena side, our revenue's covering about 60% of, including the Red Deer County contribution. On the aquatic center side, we're covering about 47% of costs. Like, should we have a target in mind, or something like a target that we would like to get to eventually? Or I'm not sure kind of what the recreation mindset is.
I guess there has never been a target set in my time with council, and the direction and pressure has typically been to keep fees lower, to keep those barriers down. So we haven't targeted any cost recovery. Again, go ahead, Todd, if you want to throw some numbers in. But yeah, we've never had targets given to supervisors or anything like that even.
Yeah, I would agree with the comments by the director. There's been I think a desire to maintain low rates and fees. Having established cost recovery is appropriate, because it gives the targets to management and operations to maintain, or a target to look at, even if it's 20%, 30%, at least there's something to work to achieve. So always like those directives, those policies. However, we have not entered that for, I guess, ever here.
Would you recommend that, CEO Becker? Like, I don't know what the recreation community and other municipalities, like, is there kind of a standard, or is it just all over the place? And
it'd be all over the map from my experience. It's been a while since I really looked into that world.
Okay.
Maybe it's something we could evaluate based on our conversations with the region and what other policies exist, but maybe that's something we could tag.
Councillor Russell?
Yeah, and I'd agree with Mayor Barkley on that. It'd be nice to have some type of target about what, I mean, we're going to be subsidizing, especially the arena and the pool. That's just, but how much, I guess is the question. What is our target? The other thing I worry about too is that if we don't continue to do those slight increments, we are widening that gap between what the subsidy is and, you know, the revenue we get. So cautious of that again, just like I was with the arena, with the aquatic center too.
So with that, to tag it administratively to explore potential cost recovery policies associated with community services facilities. That's what we're here for.
Okay, any further talk on the aquatic center for now?
Maybe we need to get 10 more vending machines. That might help.
Exact. One of the claw machines with the toys, right? Yeah.
Just if I can just add, I agree. I think, especially since we're entering into a time when we are undergoing one major modernization, we're looking the next modernization squarely in the eye, that we need some pretty, I think, a very strong mission or mandate statement around why we're doing it and what we're going to do and why we're going to do it, so that our community understands that, you know, we're not just doing it so that we can raise the price of a swimming pass or a price of a skating pass, but what the value back to the taxpayer in general is. And there is absolutely a value in being more aware of what we're doing with this kind of an operation. So yeah, it's important, but the messaging and that work is going to be really important too.
Mayor Barkley, there are benefits to a community if we have top-notch facilities. I mean, in hosting events, whether they be provincial events, regional events, even with the joint use agreement with schools and having the bigger gym that the town was part of, now that allows for provincial hosting of school events, which brings revenue into our businesses and our communities. So there is that offsite kick to it, but there's also, we got to find that balance of what is appropriate for us to be subsidizing those facilities too.
Good points, Councillor, and it ties back to your state of infrastructure report and the lack of funding we have to look after currently and future infrastructure.
Yeah, just to build on that, Councillor Russell, and the committee that does all of the work relative to the joint use, we don't, other than what I see in the paper, we don't necessarily hear back at this table about what the impacts are relative to some of those school events and activities in those facilities. So that might be something that we are bringing back to council as well, because absolutely, when you talk about those economic impacts, we all play a role in those pieces, and so that would be good information.
We'll move on to facilities. Okay, so we do have some rentals and leases out of this department. The top one there at 4560, this is for the Kemp House, so all of our rental activities out of the Kemp House. The second one, 4563, that's our curling club lease that we get annually. 4565, so this is 20,000. So this is LLC rentals, so the weddings, the Hen Day Association, things like that comes out of this department or that line. The following one, 4590, that is the senior center rent that they pay. And then Raider County also pays a portion of their contributions for kind of halls and things like that. So we do have some full-time salaries coming out of here and one kind of part-time, is that the cleaner? Out of this one? Yeah. The custodian, the part-time custodian comes out of here. Most of the items are unchanged. There is some staff training, travel and subsistence out of here. Telecommunications, this is typically cell phones and things like that for our staff. The big chunk is our building repairs and maintenance for the entire, all facilities across the organization comes out of here. We are seeing a slight increase from 195 up to $200,000, just to kind of cover that. Supplies and goods increased slightly. Janitorial supplies is showing an increase. However, it's really not an increase. It's just taking money that were set in other departments and moving it into all one spot. The net increase is the same though. Utilities, the natural gas went up a little bit, and that transfer to reserve we are increasing. So it has always funded $10,000 into the infrastructure capital repair. It is now also contributing $20,000 into the fleet reserve for a total of $30,000.
I was just going to add just some awareness facts for council with respect to some of these leases. So as Director Vickers mentioned, so we have that $5,000 curling club lease. That agreement is in place through December of 2028. It will likely be one to revisit. It's been the same rate for probably 20 years, if not longer. So the curling club is one where we have very little involvement at the curling club in terms of day-to-day activity. We do manage repairs and capital improvements, but the curling club also does contribute to some of those costs as well. At the LLC, we have the Henday Association, so they do pay a monthly rent for their space. There is an annual increase to that. It's about a $10,000 annual lease payment that the Henday Association pays. At the Kemp House, we have the Innisfail Family Day Home Society rents the second floor of the building. Pathways Counseling has a room on the main floor. And then Karen Scarlett has her art studio in the veranda area. Again, all of those leases do have annual increases. The senior center next door pays an annual, they pay us $3,800 on the year. And then we also give them an additional $18,500 through FCSS. But that one does, just in the last couple of years, has included a 2% annual increase as well. For the senior center, we're also, they're on the same meter as the town with respect to utilities and such. So that's also included for them.
And just one thing to note about the curling club, while they do pay the lease, they actually also pay their entirety of their utility costs. So they're still under our account, and we ultimately pay the utilities, and then we do send them an invoice each month to offset it. Mm-hmm. They are extremely substantial for what they pay there too. So,
though we maintain the benefit of the solar panels,
yes,
on the curling club.
They don't get that benefit, so we keep that credit and they get invoiced their full amount. So because they did not spend the investment and the capital cost to put them on there. So, any questions on that? We'll move to the next slide, to the library. The revenue, there is some zeros up there. We just rejigged some of the departments. We still had some LLC rentals coming out of this department, so we wanted this to just be library and facilities to cover facilities, so that's why you see some of those changes there. But ultimately, the revenue that the library does receive here for us is that $14,640 that comes from the Red Deer County. This is kind of a separate agreement apart from our rec agreement, just as a one-off for the library contribution here. Some small salaries, really this is just janitorial staff and some facility staff costs to go through there. Contracted services, so this would be our security system monitoring for the facility that we do cover for there. The utilities, natural gas and electricity is there, and that grants to others is that it's budgeted at $156,000, but it's $155,950 to the Innisfail Library, and then Parkland Regional Library Systems. Any questions?
Mayor Barkley? So that graph you showed us this morning, or that spreadsheet of the costs that is that what's listed here? Is those annual costs, or are those on top of what's listed here?
So which spreadsheet were you referring to?
I think there was this morning, one of the first ones that we had.
Can you pull up the in-kind library?
Yes, the in-kind, sorry, thank you.
No, it would be on the XL in kind, sorry.
Because when we're trying to get a true picture of what we're subsidizing different things, is the 295 what's being subsidized for the library, or is it 295 plus the, in 2024 was 127, right?
So Mayor Barkley through to Council Russell, so those numbers are already on this sheet.
They are,
So-
okay, thank
So
you.
the Parkland Regional Library is in this line, and all of the salaries, that's what I'll be reporting to the library, is these numbers. Yeah.
Thank you.
Should we take a break, Director Vickers?
So this is our last
Yeah.
departmental slide, and then likely I'll be asking to maybe go back in camera if we want to have any more
Yeah.
salary discussion.
Okay.
And then after that, we're either done for the day
Yeah, okay.
or what. So we can take a break right now, just
Do
a quick-
capital tomorrow or whatever.
How about,
Yeah.
if I could suggest after break to go into those operational projects, really identify those, and because my notes show it, that we've had quite a bit of an increase in our budget compared to 2025 on operational projects. I think it should be good to highlight those.
So we'll take a break? Okay. 3 o'clock, yep.
I noticed they're not in here.
What's not in there? Well, I didn't have sheets for your. Okay, so here is kind of a list of all the operating projects currently in the budget for 2026. It is totaling $510,000 in total. I just did that other Excel to kind of reference the difference from 2025 to 2026. You can't see it, but on the bottom there is a total. So in '25, we did spend $380,000 versus $510,000 this year. So I just thought we could go through the kind of list here. So for 2020, or I guess we'll just start at the top, so council, so you had no operating projects in 2025, and then just the three for your strat planning, your communication workshop, and your committee review, earmarked for 2026. In fire administration, so the only operating project that the fire department had was that fire services master plan. Initially, we thought it was gonna be a 3-year plan. At the end of it, it ends up only being a 2-year plan, with 2026 coming in at $25,000. The fire department also has a fire cadet program, which is 10 each year going in. Emergency management has that emergency coordination exercises from 25 and 26, $5,000 a year. In roads, so we did see $115,000 last year in 2025, $100,000 for sidewalk repairs, and then $15,000 for engineering studies. So that does go up by $5,000 in 2026. We're still maintaining $100,000 for the sidewalk repairs, but then doing $20,000 for that, I think it's valve and manhole repairs. Parks, so in '25, they did new trees, replacements for trees at $25,000. In '26, that is a little bit lower for $15,000. Storm sewer, we don't have any operating project for this year. In water, last year we had an $80,000 operating project, a valve repair and replacement versus, and then Res 2, Res 3 cleaning. This year we're just doing that valve repair replacement. In sewer, last year we had $50,000 manhole replacement or smart covers. This year we're transitioning it, keeping the same value, but moving it to a manhole I&I. Under concrete runners, this is the year that we have increased that operating project this year. We didn't in '25, we won't in '27, but we'll have another one in 2028. Under planning, we did have $20,000 sitting as an operating project for like downtown / public art. In 2026, that is increasing to $70,000. However, just a caveat that is not funded by tax dollars, and we are pulling from reserves to fund that $70,000. Subdivision land is sitting at $20,000 for 2026. That's in the land department. And then the strat plan update, not the strat plan update, sorry, the power of place update is sitting at $80,000. And again, $50,000 of that is being carried over from this year.
The $70,000 that you talked about, the downtown public art, actually shows there and in my binder as the Woodlands Area Structure Plan.
The downtown was the previous year,
Yeah.
is the 20,000,
Right.
and then the woodlands, 70,000.
So
is
we
the
don't have
current-
money in the public art?
No.
We just spoke to a public art money.
Yeah, so Mayor Barclay, Councillor
Just
Wing,
talking
so.
about last year.
So public art was in an operating project
I
for
see.
2025.
Okay.
And it's on the unfunded list this year.
Ah, got it, thanks.
So is there any questions on any of these operating projects? Is there something that you're wanting to see that is not on here?
I'd like to fix the sign in Centennial Park and the gazebo.
Okay. So I did kind of add that to the unfunded kind of list that I thought we'd also
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah,
before
go
we
to
left
that,
today.
too.
The
just to-
wish list, yeah.
Yeah, the wish list,
yeah.
unfunded list, yeah.
Okay. It's always a favorite part of the
Yeah.
budget. Can you keep taxes at a minimum, but then can we spend and spend and spend, right? I know,
Well-
go through this every year.
I'm glad you said it.
Mayor Barclay, I just wondered, when is the time that we discuss whether that's the appropriate amount that we'd like to see allocated to each of those projects? So you had brought up yesterday about the power in place, 80,000. Is that needed? Should that be 40? Should that be 50? When are we going to have those type of discussions? Right now, we're getting the information.
Yep, right.
But is now the time to have those discussions as well?
And so just on the power of place one, anything less than 50 and will no longer impact the taxes because we are carrying over 50. So really the tax funded portion that you're playing with is that 30,000 overage.
CEO Becker?
On Power Place itself, been discussed over the last couple of budget meetings about CED, Community Economic Development, versus Municipal Economic Development Program, traditional. So right now, you have a couple options. Maintain Power Place as per budget with a focus of going back into that discussion with council and the community regarding what is CED. The committee, as it's struck, is based on a task force to explore CED. And it took a year plus to go through a process to understand what that was, then it formulated into the Power Place documents. So an update of Power Place, and not replacement so much, but an update still requires a focus on what is CED philosophical. If you want to do CED, we need external to help us understand what is CED and what is that benefit to the community versus a traditional municipal model. A traditional municipal model is what everybody's doing. I think the CED model set us apart. There's more coming out of CED. I'm a believer of CED, that's philosophical, but we have a lot to learn within that space. So we can do that, build out that Power Place with a CED model, or if you want to focus in on tactics, on action, then we can just move into pulling out those actions of the CED document as is, but you're gonna lose that component. So I would recommend you go at the full CED as a council, because it builds out Power Place, it builds out your energy futures piece. There's a lot to that conversation. Where do you want to go? Maintain the tactics, but really, as the director stated, you can put it to a number and we'll work within a number. So we feel 80 is going to give you a full robust, maybe some turnover to 2027 budget. We don't really have it scoped out yet. If you put it to 50, we'll work within 50. And I don't want to take away from the director's comments, but that's what I'm kind of hearing. We can get it to the number you want, we'll work within that number. But without having a full detailed scope of review, it's really hard to determine what the actual number will be.
Yeah, I think CEO Becker, from what I've seen, we probably need both. We probably need an update, but we also, I think, need to understand, I look at two reports, Power of Place and the one that Director Leith delivered, the Bassett report, like what has been accomplished, I guess, where, I can sit here because I've been sitting at the table and I go, okay, well, we've done this and this and this, but I'm not sure everybody would know that, right? So maybe what we need is kind of a report saying that here's what's been accomplished in the Power of Place, and there's been a lot that's been accomplished. There's also many tasks that have not been accomplished, and whether those remain a priority, I think that would be determined through a new CED focus, because maybe some of those strategies are different. I look at workplace development, and is that a space that the town of Innisfail should be in, where there's so much data out there already that we can get, but we don't necessarily have to go into our community and maybe build that out, or maybe there's another organization doing that. So I think there's been changes even in the central region along with some players and what they're doing and how that could potentially benefit us. But I think we need to do both. And yeah, I agree with you. The Power of Place, we stood out, we stood apart because of that, and so it's really important to the identity of our community.
And just to add, and I know it's only words, it's only conversation, but the real value of a strategic plan is in the building of it. So you can have you're seeing new council, you're seeing a document, you're seeing words, and it's words, and you're going to get the value out of the words, but the building of that document is where the meat is, that creates action for a period of time. That's why you need to update strategies periodically. Right now, up to this point has been the director, CAO, planning manager, and a consultant that worked on as our active model, and we had success, but is messy and not efficient. But it created conversation with the committee. Committee had real value because we're having those real conversations. Now we have a new EDO, we have a new council, we have a new committee, but the real value comes in those conversations, and it's just words. However, it creates some energy and momentum, and it drives action. And that's the same thing as your strategy coming up in January. if you just pull a document, here's our strategy, to me, there's little value without the conversation to create that vision and focus. So I strongly believe we need external support on CED. If you want to do CED, we do need ongoing budget to help us, because we're not CED experts. We're molded into municipal economic development models, especially our new EDO is doing a great job, but we need to learn what this is. And CED, as the director stated, is a community-driven program, not just council, not just committee or administration, is driven by the community. And we learned we're not, I'm going to test my words, entrepreneurs. We are government, so you want entrepreneurs to build the program. Is bragging now, showing you I can say that word. But we are supports or facilitators. We're not the drivers of commerce.
You know, and maybe CEO Becker, when I look at that CD, I go back to our strategic planning over a couple of terms. And I think the first one we did, it had a lot in it, and the next one we did, it was kind of pared down where, okay, let's pick like 3 or 4 big rocks, I believe Ian referred to them as, and maybe the CED is the same thing. There's a lot in that. CED is in the tactical plans and maybe too much. I go back to one of our very first CED meetings and hearing about business to business and I need bolts. And we haven't even touched that conversation really, and kind of started to build that out or think about it and the business to business component. And I know the Alberta Chamber right now is doing a huge supply chain initiative across the province. And, there's some information that probably be really valuable to the community. But again, it's kind of tying on to these other organizations, but also continuing on with this. But maybe it's just too big where it is right now, and it would be impossible to fulfill in the 3-year period that we had to fulfill it.
Yeah, it's back to budget. Certainly we can adjust because a lot of it we don't know. We have not scoped it out. There's a piece, I'll come back to you, Council, if you wish to move into that. Continue on with the Energy Roadshow, the energy focus for economic developments on a kind of a clean energy philosophy, which was driven by council administration last term, which led into such projects as the Deep Sky and other conversations we're having with Bilton, for example. But that ties into this, and what my thought is to explore that is to bring in a consultant from the Energy Futures Lab that helped us have that roadshow, energy roadshow, just to explore, does council wish to continue on with this philosophy and driver investment focus regarding clean energy? So that's tied into here. So, we can adjust. The director, I don't want to take into your proposal, but we can adjust, I would say, based on council's need and desire. But certainly looking for your input on what that could be if council wants us to explore that.
Yeah, again, as we kind of discussed yesterday, we can tailor the scope and the dollar amount as council sees fit. In your budget book, there is an operating project description in the ECDev tab, sort of as to what's envisioned as part of that project, but we would be working with a consultant and being able to throttle back or vice versa in terms of the extent of that process. And maybe it needs to extend beyond the 2026 calendar year as well.
So is that 80, Director Jenkins, is that based on the cost from the original?
It's based, on sort of the idea of what some of the work we did with Factor 5 and what that initial investment reflected. Thinking about a number of facilitated meetings. It's definitely not a space where there's a lot of individuals. You're definitely looking for the right individual to deliver the material and facilitate the process. So.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, and I don't know the number, I have no idea. I'm just thinking that maybe the number would be less because we're looking at more of an update and really I don't know, I feel the base of the plan, kind of the guts of the plan is there. And it's a matter of kind of updating with whether it's a CED advisory committee as well as council. And
And if
and
the
EFL and-
number is 50, again, we'll work within that and be able to come back to council even, and say, this is what we can get for 50, and we feel that's sufficient or not, as we move into the year.
Okay. Councillor Russell or Hystad, or I'm not sure who's up first.
You were up
I'll let
first
you
this
guys
time.
fight it
Yeah,
out.
okay, there we go. So, you know, just looking at the Power Place, there's a lot of good work that was done. I think it's important to bring it back to this new council. As to the number, I was, you know, in that 40 to 50 range in my head. I guess my question to CEO Becker is, with our new well, he's not new anymore, economic development officer, how much can John help us with this portion, or is that more of a contracted out piece? That's my first question, and then I'll go through a couple more items.
Again, sort of CAO Becker mentioned that the community economic development philosophy, I think, is definitely something that we need an external to take on. The logistics, the hosting open houses, the bringing the community together, those types of things are things that we, you know, have the capability. But again, that specific expertise and experience.
So that's, you know, I'm in that 40 to 50 range. Sidewalk repairs, like, that's $100,000. Are we, Director Kennedy, I'm assuming, CAO to Director Kennedy, is that a must this year, that $100,000, or can we get away with $50,000? I just thought I'd ask. These are the ones that I'm gonna throw out. Everything else that I see is a must, really, but except for one that I want to bring up. So.
Sure. Yeah, I could respond in regards to sidewalk repairs. Again, these are based on our assessments that are done. They're based on trip hazards, ponding, safety concerns. That's what this program is focused on. It's hard for, if you're asking my opinion, yes, it must be done because it's safety, it's risk. Can it be reduced? Sure.
Yeah.
We've done it before. We did it 2 years ago. We reduced it to 50,000. And we made do with what we have for budget. No different this year. We would do the same thing. We would extend the 50,000 as much as we can do, and that's what we would utilize it. So we provide it to you based on what we think our condition of sidewalks are, and we go from there.
Okay. Oh, thanks for that. I appreciate it. And then, so yeah, as to that one, that's where I was thinking, you know, you could, if we're gonna look at the list and say this is a number that I'm thinking of or where I'm at, that's where I was at, more of a 50. And then if I go back to, I think there's another sheet there, the public art piece, right? What's that? Okay. Nope. And so, yeah, no, those are the only ones that I had. As to everything else, yeah, that's all I want to talk about. Thanks.
Okay, Mayor Burke. So, I mean, going through these, I guess, for me, I'm trying to get my head around stages and what we should be discussing when. So, I mean, we're dealing with the operational budget basically now. Tomorrow, I think we're going to look at the capital budget. For me personally, before I look at saying, well, could we reduce this one by 50 or 30 or whatever it might be, I guess it would be, what is our target that we're trying to reduce and find savings in, if any? Or as a council, are we comfortable with what's put in front of us, the assessment increase plus a 1.59% taxation increase? Personally, I'm not. I'd like to see that reduced a bit. I'd like to see it as close to just being the assessment base increase as possible. But then there's also the wish list that we've added to today, right? So, I mean, getting our head around what is it we're trying to solve before we try to solve it, for me, that's the way I think. But I don't know where the rest of the council's at on that. So you know where I stand on where I'd like to see us get to, but I don't know where the rest of council is at on that.
I think Director Vickers, we could also look at franchise fee, and maybe you could bring us some scenarios of assessment growth, period, and franchise fee as opposed to
A tax
tax, and what does that mean to the average
User.
user?
Should we look at the wish list to see if there's anything that
So we
either
could add to it?
take things
Sure.
off altogether?
Okay.
Or, I actually put in a Word document into the folder for it's called unfunded items, sorry. And then we'll just go on and strike them off right as we go through. And I did add the Centennial Park sign as well as trail lighting. We can go through the list and remove what we don't want. So STARS requisition, I feel like that you guys decided to no, right? What about the Red Deer River watershed at 50 cents per capita? Also no. Okay. So let's start at the top then. So Ipsos survey. So there was some slight discussion on Friday, very high level. What's everyone's thoughts on that one?
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. I'm still in favor of this one. I think it's data that we go outside this community, the administration side of things, and we're getting true data that explains, gives us information that is outside of us. It's not driven by our own marketing communication side. It's driven by Ipsos, and I think that's valuable data. And I think if we don't do this, then we're kind of like similar to the comments or conversations about some of the increases that we can make to our facilities, is that we're just kicking it down the road. And that's how I'm looking at it. Thanks.
You want to go around the table? Quite honestly, I'm on the fence on this one. To me, it would have to be, if I was prioritizing that one versus something else, it would all depend on what the something else is. But do I see value in it? Certainly I do. But is it something that we have room to include in this budget? I'm not quite sure yet.
Mayor Barkley, I participated in this survey several years ago, and I was quite pleased with it and the input, and I was pleased with the outcomes from it. But much like, I guess, Councillor Russell here, I'm just trying to think what are all those priorities we have to put in place, and what can we afford? And I, too, would like to see that tax rate, I think, like anybody else, at the lowest level we could possibly keep it, but still maintain ourselves operationally. However, if I looked at this whole thing, it would be high on my priority list, the survey.
I just think if it's a measuring tool of the survey, what are we going to what are we going to do with the information? What are we going to leverage, and where's it going to get us? And if I can be told, hey, if we do this survey and we can compile this information and it's going to help us in this area, and this area, and this area, then I'm all for it. If it's something that it's like, oh, it's nice to have, it's might help us, but if we have a specific piece that it might be able to leverage us in a project or decision making, then for sure. But if it's not a specific intent, then I think I'd probably pass.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I concur with Councillor Hill and Councillor Russell that, unless we know what we're getting back out of it, it wouldn't be the highest priority, especially out of the list that I see in front of us.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. This is a toughie. If I thought that spending the money on the survey would actually leverage us towards other funding from other levels of government or whatever, I would be supportive of it. But I can tell you that from my own perspective, the results would be, don't raise my taxes and don't cut my services. We've asked people about how they feel about their safety in the community. I just don't know that we would get anything back that we couldn't predict. So it wouldn't be my number one choice relative to other items on this list.
Yeah, it's not a priority. Certainly, I do get the value behind it. I think last time, just trying to recall really what we got out of it, then, I mean, it benchmarked council performance. I think it benchmarked administration and stuff. So, you know, sorry? Oh, so important for sure, but I would agree with the others that I'm not sure that it's necessarily moves the community forward in any concrete way that we already have a lot of information. We've done a lot of surveys and. Yeah.
So I feel like I'm hearing that I can cross it off this list. Is it something that you guys would like to reconsider at the surplus discussion potentially? Or is it not a priority and maybe other things would come at that surplus discussion and this still is not a priority yet or at this time?
What's that?
I don't know.
How much is the surplus?
Exactly, exactly.
We don't talk about that until like, you'll know in March. That's when we talk about the surplus.
I get the sense it's a no-go. And I'd rather just say, hey, no-go. Let's not beat this one to death, right?
Yeah, I think Director Vickers just wants to know if it's going to kind of remain on that unfunded item
Yeah,
list.
is it going to remain in our peripheral that we'll
Yeah.
bring back at an appropriate time, or can we just put it in the cupboard?
Put it on the shelf, but not in the cupboard.
Okay. We have used.
Junk drawer.
We did use the past survey a number of years, really just to help guide council. These are the priorities that the public likes or would want us to go in. And really a few of the questions around where they're getting their information from, even things on how attainable are you to even have a tax increase, even some kind of those kinds of thoughts.
Well, I think we asked that last year. That was one of our first questions. Would you like a tax increase? No. So I think we know that answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to
Okay, downtown lights. Okay.
So everyone would have seen kind of a precursor to what those would look like on Friday.
So can you tell us, like, give us more of the light story? So year-round lights on trees, Christmas
Yes.
time only, twinkle lights?
So looking to move, this is year-round lights. The long term would be essentially tree lights from the bowling alley through to the cenotaph on both sides on the street trees. And then you'll have noticed the three in front of Darkwoods are sort of the experimental ones for how those would work. I think they look great. That we would go from there to 4-lane on the north side of the street. Every other tree would sort of be the long term. So that would actually be a 3-year to get that full amount done. We were able to do the work we did this year through sort of a combination of some parks Christmas budget, some special event budget from the Christmas tree lighting, to sort of experiment with using a professional to do the lighting. We've sort of been DIYing it to this point. And when we make that the step to, not that we haven't been doing it properly, but
Yeah, and I think too, just the history, right? Kind of going back again to that
Yeah.
13 Ways work 3 terms ago now that we started, and this was so much a beautification of the community and how important that is to economic development and, you know, investment attraction, resident attraction, and we all talked about a community that we love to visit and go to, and why is that? And it was all around kind of that feel you get in the community, and so this is how our twinkle lights began.
And I think, you know, the economic development conversation has kind of gone around the table. As economic development is sort of a nebulous thing. As the municipality, we don't have the direct ability to, you know, we don't give money to businesses. We don't do these, but by creating the environment that is supportive and doing those things for them, those are sort of the tangible ways we support economic development, bringing people to the community, bringing events to the community, getting people out and about.
Okay, so lights in, lights out. Councillor Hystad.
Go, you go, you go.
So you don't have to be the first one every time. I'll go
You
first this
I'll
time.
start with somebody different every time.
You know, when I drove by them, I was impressed with how it looks, and it would make our main street look quite impressive if we were to go down through there. And when I read through the Power in Place document, it did talk about the main street beautification and revitalization, whatever you want to call it, and it certainly aligns with that document. So it'd be $25,000 over 2 years. It's something that I certainly would put on the surplus list at the very least, if not include it, because I do think it would have a powerful impact on our main street. So, just my thoughts.
Okay, we can do that. Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I as well would say, yes, that could be a surplus. It does work on beautification. And it's funny, as I was sitting here, I was thinking of another community I was just in and going down the main street, not where I've been for the last 2 days, but a while ago, a town of a similar size. And, you know, going down Main Street didn't look great. But I go back to the beautification part in the documentation. I think it does have value for our community.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yeah, I think it kind of gives you that perspective of yeah, if you could maybe enhance the downtown, they get an opportunity to see what maybe being an entrepreneur might be of interest of other people wanting to maybe be on Main Street if they see it as a kind of more of a destination and very welcoming. Just a quick question to Director Jenkins. You'd mentioned that like this here is identified as a 50,000 over 2 years, and then you're saying potentially if there was to be the expansion, it would be a 3-year. I just heard a 3-year from that.
Yes, so the 25, we would do one block, we would do the Cenotaph to the banks. Year 2 would be the next block to the bowling alley. And then it would be an additional year project if we want to go.
Yeah, we should actually, yeah, that's
so,
at 70.
Yeah.
Okay, that was just
Yeah.
my question, just because I kind of heard 2 year, 3 years, so I appreciate the clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yeah, I'm all for it to be in the surplus. Driven down Camrose many a time in the Christmas with the lights on, and it definitely enhances what's not a very pretty town sometimes, so all for it.
Thank you. I do support this, actually, and have a little bit of a different perspective. Certainly agree with everything that everyone else has said. I've, over the last term, done enough exploration into crime prevention through environmental design to make me dangerous. I'm not an expert by any means, but I do know that things like lighting makes for a much safer environment, and it will cause that area to become more walkable for people. And it is a bit of a strip where we have people that are living or staying in hotels and motels that are walking perhaps, or even just driving, but trying to find a place to eat or whatever. That provides density in the downtown, and that makes it feel safer and actually makes it safer for people to be down there. So yeah, I would be in support of wherever it ends up, whether it's now or in the surplus conversation. I support it. Thanks.
Yeah, fully supportive. I'm curious about maybe not starting at the fast gas stand and starting more down maybe in that Dark Woods Boots and Barrels area, just because it's, you know, you've got the traffic and busy restaurants and that kind of thing, or
Yeah,
anyway,
we can,
that's up to you to decide, but.
We've had that conversation
Okay.
since the ones have been turned on in front of Darkwoods.
Yeah.
You know, do we stretch out the string lights that we have for downtown for a couple more years and
Yeah.
I think going that way to 4-lane as well, when you're coming into town over the overpass, you'll be able to see that strip of lights, and you know, whether that's the draw to be like, oh, I'm gonna keep going. It looks like there's something going on in this community. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm certainly on board.
Mayor Barkley.
Oh, you're back. Oh,
You made-
I forgot about you.
You didn't even.
I thought we asked
you
him
didn't-
already.
Oh, this is, CEO Becker, this is being taped, right? No, actually, Mayor Barkley, I'm going to agree with you. I am going to agree with you. I think that the lights look great, and actually, the reason why I'm saying this is I want to recognize the staff as well, like those big Christmas presents in the open area with the projectors, that was awesome. But the lighting itself, I think the downtown lighting looks really nice the way it is. I'd rather see those new lights coming from Ford in, and that's where I agree with you. There you go. So it's on tape. Ken, there we go. We got it. Thanks.
That's once for 2025? I'm just kidding.
Mayor Barkley, if I could just speak to that as well. I think Councillor Wing brought up a really good point. As a person that patrols late at night sometimes, I can tell you I can see a lot downtown with the lighting and that. So I think that was a valuable point. It kind of fits with that SEPTA approach.
So we're happy to just leave it on the surplus list, and we'll come and talk to you February, March, when we're bringing up the surplus. Okay. Okay, so number 3 was an item that we did remove from the budget, and rather, before we just remove it altogether, we thought we'd put it on the unfunded or the wish list item, just to give council a chance to have some conversation about it. So it was from the Economic Development Department, and really it kind of started out a few years ago as a $10,000 item, specifically maybe for the chamber or something like that. It was going to be expanded to $15,000 to kind of just be ECDEV support to kind of anyone out there, or some of those sponsorships in there. But we did remove the budget, just trying to, it's a tight budget, so we thought we'd remove that and have council have a conversation on that before we move forward.
Would that have included like the Energy Innovation Fair at RDP?
Yes, so this would be, the Energy Innovation Fair and the 10 Peaks were the two that we supported in 2025. As Erica mentioned, it was originally sort of set aside as part of that Power of Place document as kind of seed funding for the chamber if they were going to take on some of those networking events, that it would let them get the startup money so they could start hosting those. It was, it hadn't been utilized. I think we budgeted it for 2-3 years. So then we actually adopted this ECDEV policy just a few months ago with 15 identified. Again, any dollar value would work. We'll,
Yep.
you know.
I'll start with Councillor Wing.
Oh, sure. I think it's important, actually, but I would like to include it in the conversation that we're going to have that we haven't finished yet relative to our overall investment in Power of Place or in economic development in general. So I would just prefer that we don't deal with that one quite yet, but when we're talking about that other $80,000, maybe we can have the conversation then.
Maybe it could all fit into one.
Yeah.
As opposed
Yeah.
to separate or something. Councillor Strong?
I totally concur with
Okay.
what Councillor Wing said about that.
Okay. Councillor Hill?
If we're not going to jump down, I guess we'll just say yes.
Okay.
Well, I'll just jump down to that's
Councillor
fine.
McKellar? Perfect.
Mayor Barkley, yeah, I would concur with Councillor Wing.
Okay.
I sort of agree with Councillor Wing, in that, to me, I see it as the same. I see it as, I thought that was encompassed in the $80,000 that was in the others, so that's where I sort of agree with you. I don't think we should be adding, to make it now 95, but I do think it's part of that discussion, but for me, on this list, this is not a priority because I see it as already a discussion coming in that 80, so.
But it's not, not originally it wasn't in the 80.
No, it's over and above. And just as a side note, so I did mention the two, the Energy Innovation Fair and the 10 Peaks Student Energy Summit.
10 Peaks Conference, yep.
The 10 Peaks event was postponed into 2026 because of the teacher strike, so that's carrying to 2026. The Energy Innovation Fair has also been pushed into 2026, so our 2025 allocations are carrying forward right now anyways.
Okay, Councillor Hystad.
I think we saved some money there, so it's 2026. I agree with Councillor Russell and Councillor Wing somewhat, so.
Yeah, I feel, Director Jenks, certainly, I love it when the town of Innisfail is front and center sponsoring. I would say the fair at RDP, the attendance is such that I don't think we get value for our dollar there. 10 Peaks, absolutely. There was 750 applicants, student applicants this year, and I think they take 500. Of course, we had an opportunity to be part of a panel, and unfortunately that got pushed forward, but I think 10 Peaks is really an important place for the town of Innisfail to be. So I would say, I think that was 5,000, that. So I don't know whether you can take the Power of Place 80 that we've kind of talked about, maybe it doesn't need to be 80 because we're not starting from scratch, and incorporate, maybe it's 10 out of that line into that. So 5 for 10 Peaks and something else that may come along, or.
But so these dollars here are gonna go away, and if we add the sponsorship and support in, it's gonna come from that 80, am I correct?
Correct. That's the idea that we have.
It would go to 50 and.
Or not, or 15 and 7.
Okay, ICF. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hystad.
No, I was going to ask with the 10 Peaks one, I was intrigued me. Do we know how many young people from Innisfail were going to attend that one?
Don't off the top of my
No.
head, but they certainly
Yeah,
showed all the schools, so.
No, it's an opportunity for us to work closely with the school divisions on that one. So, thanks.
Okay, ICF. Okay,
I'll just start it off, if
Thank
that's
you.
all right. Yeah, I think my comments prior stand true. I think it's a responsible thing for a community to make sure that what's rightfully should be coming back to our community and should be contributed to our community from the users should be there. And I feel if we should have legal representation to make sure that we get a fair chance at that. And if that means it's $50,000, then so be it. Because I don't think we'd miss the boat if we and have some regret if we didn't. So.
does everybody agree with that? I think we talked a little bit about it in the budget and how important that is. And as we're going through the operational budget today, I'm making a list. And, some of it's 4% contribution, some is a 22% contribution, but I think there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of discussions to be had, and 50 could be light.
So Mayor Barrett, is the recommendation that it be in the surplus conversation or moved into the actual budget?
I think it should be in the actual budget.
Actual budget. Yeah. I concur, but then we have to have discussion about what comes out.
Number 7, public art. Councillor Hystad.
Comment on it. I think when administration was talking about this, they were talking about somebody taking on that role for 65 or something like that, and that, to me, that seems a little steep. And I'll speak to this because I was on the previous council, and I think we've done some really nice things in our community with our public art. I don't see it as, just looking at our numbers, we could probably get away doing that 20 to 25,000 working with other groups, doing community art and doing some really good work in our community. I think we can get away with that and look at being creative with our administration. And I'll give you an example. The welcoming committee, when we did a number of our art installations on the theater, as well as the coffee cottage, that was all grant funded. We had grants that we had from the provincial government. And so I see, there's a collaboration there. I don't see us using the 85,000, but I would like to see us put some money in public art installation. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the economic development piece is you want to make your community look attractive. It's similar to the lighting that we have that we're just talking about today. You want to invite people to your community, and I think this is where we can enhance that, putting some money to it. Thank you.
Councillor Hill?
I guess maybe my opinion is a little bit different. I kind of look at it as kind of how we use the model with the facade program, where if you come to us with a project and it's approved and we're going to match up to 50% or something like that, just because it does get that community involvement, it is something that, you're getting the buy-in of local artists, you're getting the buy-in of local groups, and it's one of those things that you don't just go paint something just because there was budget. You paint something there because it means something to the community. Whatever the criteria might be, I think it would be good to have some money set aside for it. At 15, maybe depending on, this is only 1 year's budget, right? So if we think what are we actually going to get painted in 1 year, that's kind of my feeling of it. And obviously we can look at different ways, but I think having that local, why there was so much success with what you guys have had was that you had local businesses donating certain things and other, building that, just that local support on a community basis, not just throwing money at it. So I think that was good, but that's just my opinion.
To me, it's once the lights go up, I think it's when the art should be looked at again. I think the lights are going to bring value. I understand SEPTED very well, and I think it's going to bring us a lot at that. I just think for $85,000, when we're still trying to come up with what the right number looks like, it's a big number that, to me, just doesn't give us the bang for the buck in this budget.
Mayor Barkley, I'd just like to note that 65,000 of that is intended for a staff
Yes.
member
Yeah.
to manage the program. So really only 20,000 would be going out in grants to the community for actual art.
Yeah, we developed a
Yeah.
framework, policy around this, and the idea was to maybe have a staff member at some point in time kind of heading that initiative, but Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I have a very, very strong feeling about intentionally developing policy and then intentionally not resourcing it. I don't think we can afford $85,000 this year, but I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose sight of our public art policy, and I would like to see us have something that our local arts community and not-for-profits can use as leverage for grants or for other opportunities. The Welcoming and Inclusive Communities Committee is one example of that. We do have the policy. We were committed to doing something with it when we approved the policy. We spent money having that policy put together, so I don't want to see it put on in a binder on a shelf somewhere. But I just don't think that we can afford the full position this year. The 25,000 or 20,000 from my perspective would be more palatable for 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd agree. If we take out the position, so we're looking at 20,000, it's like 10 to 20,000, I would consider that in a surplus conversation. For me, the priority would still be on the lighting, but part of a surplus conversation. Maybe we could be creative and have the Centennial Park sign done as an art project, and then we get two done as one, but.
Maybe. Yeah, I would concur with that. I don't think staffing is appropriate at this time, and I think it's worked well so far with IWIC taking the lead on some of these things and getting funding through the Alberta Arts Foundation, et cetera. So there are opportunities out there other than that we can participate, but I can't do it ourselves, and it's not the time to add a staff member for this, but important, of course. We've talked about it lots. So Okay,
Your worship, I just want to be clear, I wasn't asking for that staff position. I was just saying that, that I was looking at more of a $20,000 to $25,000, and how do you work with the welcoming committee or another group that would, it'd be a social project, right? And that's what.
well, they've always come forward to the town and
Yeah.
and got support, so.
So that's how I was looking at this, not a staffing position. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
To council's interest in advancing culture and art, the nature of having staff is due to capacity challenges to advance $20,000 worth of projects, depends on what you're expecting. Is that tipping point likely? So I like to put a question mark by this one in order to talk to administration about what can you do, management, here in this conversation internally based on capacity on, basically on our current staffing levels. What can we achieve with $20,000 worth of projects? Because right now we're basically, what I see in this deliverable is if you want to advance $20,000 worth of projects, we need $85,000 or $69,000 worth of staffing. So
But
we need to figure that out.
Yeah, I think what I've seen in the past, and from an outsider's perspective, it's worked well. So IWIC or some group might come forward and they want to do a project and they're going to apply for funding, and the town helps maybe with some of that funding. So we're not doing, I don't want to say we're not doing anything, but we're writing a check as opposed to kind of leading and doing all the applications, because I think IWIC has done the majority of it.
Your worship, we've done 3 projects.
Yeah.
So, and all those numbers, went from 6,000 for a mural to 12,000. And it was all done, it was a community project. And that's why, I'm not pleading with you, but I think that an opportunity to still work with a number of groups is a great option for us if we have that's why I said 20 to 25. So that's all. Thanks.
So hearing the council, then obviously we'll come back with a review of the policy, make sure the policy lines up with your expectation and the ability to serve on that policy.
That was my thought, that we should bring that plan to council, whether it happens in the next couple weeks or in the new year
Yeah,
to review, what that plan said, what the vision was, and if it is going to be sort of an augmented approach, that's how that's going to work.
Okay, yeah, because I think there were some maybe budgetary dollars or some dollars referenced in that plan to kind of build this out, and it was like 1% of budget or something?
Yeah, so it maps out sort of a 5-year
Yes,
program
that's
of increasing allocations towards the project and how that builds out, the creation of a committee and sort of the vision and direction of art in the community as well, so.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on. So we'll bring that for a discussion at a later point, and if funding is needed, we can bring that up at the surplus discussion.
Okay. And then these other two, what would you?
I just typed those on today because they came up for discussion, so it's.
Okay, I would say Centennial Park sign and gazebo.
And gazebo.
The gazebo, that's referring to painting? Is that your-
Well,
the gazebo?
I'll let you determine that when you go look at it. I would say minimum painting. There's probably some repairs that need done in there as well, but it gets used a lot. It's amazing how much of that is used.
Because we carry a maintenance budget.
Okay.
So we can get that done.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't even need to be on the list. Yep.
Okay. Okay,
So just the sign?
sure.
And obviously, Director Kenny we'd have to do some
Yeah.
budgeting and stuff, so, but likely a surplus discussion, or do you want, like, what are you looking
Well,
for?
in my opinion, it needs to be done.
Okay.
We can't wait another year, another 2 years, because it's not pretty when you drive in there and.
My only concern now, because we don't have a cost, it would be hard to put it into budget right
Yeah.
now. So likely we'll have to do some review and get some quotes, and then bring it back likely at the surplus discussion, so we can allocate dollars at that
Sure.
point.
Okay.
Does that sound fair? Okay.
And then the trail lighting, I guess that as well, like how big of a project are we looking
Well,
at there?
and trail lighting where?
Yeah, like we
What
talked about
trails?
Raspberry Park, we talked about the Upland Aspen Trail going out to Sunset Glass. So what does that look like? And or is that part of the trail master plan that?
You will see tomorrow in the capital plan
Okay.
that we're proposing a recreation and open space.
Yes.
Master
Yeah.
plan creation, so that would encompass some of that trail and such as well. So again, it wouldn't be doing any of those projects in 2026, but could map out how that could be approached.
Okay. So would we take toll lighting off then and leave it with the recreation and the recreation master plan to kind of
Make sure it
encompass?
incorporates that.
Yes.
and As a discussion
Does that make
point.
sense?
Yep. Just looking at our priority list that we did have in the trail master plan, so that it was identified solar trail lighting review and potential pilot project in the 3 to 5 year projection. That was 2023, so we can definitely take this list, carry it into that new report so it doesn't get lost.
Sure. Okay.
If there's anything else here, council, if not, while it's still fresh in your conversation, going back to that power of place, maybe you want to move into that number of comfort. Here, and there's interest to lower and talk about the ACDEV sponsorships. Do you want to move into that, finalizing that conversation today, as it's pretty fresh with you?
Sure.
So is there anything else on the unfunded list or wish list
There's
that
so much.
council?
No, just kidding.
No? No?
Okay, so power of place number to include sponsorship as well.
Right.
Okay. Counselor Wing, you have your light on?
Yeah, I do, because I didn't speak about the power of place earlier, so I would like to add my 2 bits worth. I'd like to change the context of, of the title, Power of Place Update, but I'd like to just talk about sort of what we did in the last 4-year term, and we made a significant investment of resources and council time and admin time as we went down the path of the Energy Futures Lab and the Energy Roadshow. And so I think that tucks nicely into the Power of Place work to begin with. I mean, I think it's something that fits within our community economic development philosophies. I think some of the businesses that we've seen come to Innisfail have been the direct result of that attention and the due diligence that we put into that school of thought and that work. I would hate to see us lose some of the momentum that we've gained over the past 4 years relative to the Energy Roadshow. So if some of that work and the continuation of that work falls under that power of place, because it is our economic development strategy as a whole, I think that that's important. So 50,000 of this 80,000 is funded from 2025. So we're looking for $30,000 out of this budget, not $80,000. I think that we'll be better placed from a decision-making conversation once we've got our strategic plan done. I think that this is a bit of a preliminary conversation, but the work really comes at the beginning of January when we do our strat plan. So I don't know if we can put a pause on making this decision, because I don't think we're ready to make the decision yet. I don't think we have all the information.
Mayor Barkley, just based on that comment, we can maintain it at the 50,000 because that's a carryover amount. Remove the 30,000 for now, and after our strat planning, we'll be bringing in the surplus after that, and we can make an addition to this project from the surplus allocation if, to make it easier now, right? You guys maybe don't have the information yet. After the strat planning, you might have a better idea of where you want to go. It's an option.
I would be fine with that.
Can I seek some clarification from Director Vickers? The surplus conversation, it comes from the audited financial statement for the 2025 year, and there's any surplus left there, then council decides, are we putting that into reserves, or are we going to address some of these things on our wish list? Is that
Yeah, so
the
the
right
surplus
process?
allocation will come well before the audited financials are for you. But yes, so that whatever that money is, will be coming saying, this is where we would like to spend that surplus. If it's $400,000, we want to put X number into the facility reserve for the pool, and we want to pay for these few little odds projects that we've talked about now, and anything else that we may want. So that's what has happened the last couple of years.
And then the other clarification is if this was reduced to 50,000 as a carry forward, that only adjusts our budget by 30,000 then?
Correct. This whole project is only needing 30,000 of tax-funded dollars for 2026.
In the current budget year?
Yes, yes.
Right, so we're still are, if we do that, we are still net 20,000 higher than when we started this conversation because we put 50 in for the conversations we're going to have with Red Deer County. Okay.
There was a handful of other things that we have found, the 10,000 for the Aquatic Center natural gas. Director Jenkins did find a couple revenue accounts that we can adjust to kind of incorporate some more actuals. So we will bring back some of these all-encompassing changes that we found to try and lower it as best we can too.
Anybody else want to comment on power of place funding? Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Wing on how she worded everything. I'm on the same page as her. Thanks.
Okay, so let's keep it at 50, I guess, from what it was this year, and we'll go from there. And
So 50, make sure we identify it and talk about it during strat planning, and then if there's any additions or changes to the project itself, we
well,
would.
and that would include sponsorship too. So like it's not just 50 for the update of the plan. It's now maybe 30 or 40 for the plan and sponsorship. So, but I think it's so important that we don't lose sight of this and we don't let it go. And in my opinion, we have the last year or so. We've kind of let this slide and hasn't been the focus around the energy, the Innisfil Energy Hub, et cetera. And I'd really like us to, well, we'll see when it comes to strat plan. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys like to see out, put back in, any further discussion? Is there any need to go back in camera to have any further discussion on salaries?
Do you want to go back in there momentarily because Councillor McKellar wasn't here yesterday?
Yep.
So.
Okay, so we'll go in camera. say my day, we're done. Okay, perfect. Okay, council, so we are done with kind of the agenda for today. We did make it through most of the operating stuff, so we will be back first thing in the morning with a start on capital. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good day.